The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The Health Department reports more than 10,000 new COVID-19 cases for the fourth consecutive day. This brings the total caseload to more than 936,000, some 141,000 of which are still active. At least 150 more deaths were confirmed in the past 24 hours, bringing the total tally to nearly 16,000. Total recoveries are now at 779,000, with over 72,000 additional survivors today. This is the highest number of daily virus survivors in the country since the onset of the pandemic. While the country's COVID-19 tallies show a slight improvement, the Health Department reported today more cases of variants of concern. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has warned governments across the globe about a possibly more contagious variant from India. To talk more about these, we have on the line Dr. Ronchin Solante, head of the Infectious Disease Division of San Lazaro Hospital. Doc, good evening.
Yes, Lisa, good evening.
Doc Solante, we have more than 70,000 recoveries today, the highest jump since the pandemic began. Does this mean the stress in our healthcare system has somehow eased?
Yes, I think that's a good data to somehow make ourselves confident that we can deal with this pandemic, especially for those who are admitted in the hospitals, and we're seeing good outcome, especially for our patients who are being brought to the hospital early, even if they are in the severe or critical stage of the infection.
Dr. Ronchin, the new cases of variants of concern came from the recent batch of over 700 samples. Do you think we are testing enough specimen?
Obviously, that's too small a sample to really say that we have tested enough in terms of looking at that these variants are the main drivers now of the transmission. But I would still like to believe that with or without this variant, COVID-19, even with the D614G, is already highly transmissible. And you put in all these new variants of concern, then that would make it 2 to 3 times more transmissible than the previous or the second generation variant. So whether you have this new variant or not, still something that our program or the way we approach COVID-19 hasn't changed. That's really emphasizing the importance of minimum health safety protocols.
Doc, with these variants that you mentioned of concern that we have identified so far in the Philippines, which one are you considering to be most concerning?
I am concerned with the South African and the Brazilian variant because based on current data, especially for this Brazilian variant, because of its numbers of mutations that can affect vaccines and at the same time the ability to be more transmissible and affect some of the drugs that are also important in the prevention of COVID or in the treatment of COVID, like the monoclonal antibodies.
Dr. Solante, the P3 variant, which was first detected in Central Visayas, is still tagged as a variant of interest. Can you please enlighten us, how does a variant become concerning?
Okay, a variant of interest, to differentiate this from a variant of concern, is that when you have a variant of concern, there are already evidence that this variant is highly transmissible. It affects efficacy of the virus or the vaccine or efficacy of some of this treatment. And there's also some evidence that it can also escape diagnostic or being detected in some of these diagnostic tests.
So
while the variants of interest is they're still looking at evidence on its ability to be highly transmissible and how it affects vaccines and other therapeutics.
So again, Doc, how likely will this be a variant of concern? Again, the P3.
We need to wait for data that are being collated now by our experts, the Philippine Genome Center. Hopefully, by looking at some of this variant, doing more detailed studies on its ability to transmit and the other factors I have mentioned, we will know sooner or later.
Doc, about another variant, the B1617 variant that first appeared in India. What information do we have on this so far, especially on it being reported as double mutation characteristic?
Well, most of these variants do have these multiple mutations. No, it's not just double mutations, but they have multiple mutations at the site of the spike protein. Remember, the spike protein is the part of the virus that attaches itself to the cells of the human. And because of that mutation, it can be transmitted, or it can enter to the cell rapidly. So at this point, I would like to believe that this variant is still a part of variant of interest, and we need to know more data how it will behave, and if it will be called a variant of concern.
Dr. Ranjin, we already had 2 weeks of ECQ, and now we are under MECQ and NCR, but the cases are still going up. Do you think this has something to do with the variants?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Risa, I would like to believe that with or without this variant, there may be a factor that the presence of this variant is also an important driver of the increase in the cases. And it's just a matter of time that if the Philippine Genome Center will be able to sequence a lot of the samples, especially for samples that are among patients with severe infection or those in hospitalized patients with this COVID-19, then we will have better understanding now that the current trend in increase in the cases is mainly driven by the variant.
One final question, Doc. You previously said the shift to MECQ is premature. So far, what measures can you recommend to the government?
I think the government has already laid out all of this, what we call this plan for this COVID-19. It's just really a matter of how to implement it and how to be 100% compliant with all of these plans. So meaning it's really the execution of all of this program that the government has laid out. And I think that's where the difference there now, because of the different variabilities on how it is being implemented and being followed, and in terms of particularly the contact tracing, the testing, and part which is really an important aspect of really mitigating and controlling the pandemic.
We'd like to thank you for your time and for your insights. That's Dr. Ranjin Solante from the San Lazaro Hospital. And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The Philippines has been sourcing out vaccines from different countries that have enough machinery for production. But with the steady rise in cases recently, could this be the time to have our own vaccine plant? Camille Samonte has the story.
Local pharmaceutical firm Glovax Biotech Corporation is planning to build a facility that will manufacture UCORVAC-19 vaccine in the country. UCORVAC-19 is developed in the United States by POP Biotechnologies and produced by South Korea-based EU Biologics. Glovax CEO Giovanni Alingog says it is time to build a vaccine plant to ensure a steady source of job supplies. If everything goes out smoothly, the construction is slated on or before October this year. As for the location, authorities are still choosing between Zambales or Clark City. The facility is eyed to have a production capacity of 100 million doses in a year.
Our vaccine plant will be able to help the Filipinos, not only this COVID vaccine, but in the future, because we will be ready with the solution. No? Whenever there will be a new pandemic, so we will be ready and we will not be waiting for excess supply from other countries.
Alingog says UCARVAC 19 has already passed the clinical trials in South Korea and has an efficacy rate that's comparable with other Western-made vaccine brands. Clinical trial is set to begin in the country this April with 200 individuals across 5 sites nationwide as participants.
This is to show that we have a very safe and effective product or with high efficacy in the future. And this is the reason why we wanted to do it here, to show our kababayan na hindi lang tayo ay purely business, but we're doing this to show na it is safe and effective for them as well.
The vaccine plant's estimated costs stand at 7 billion pesos. Manny Pangilinan and his group of companies have pledged to support GloVax. The vaccine plant is also seen to boost the economy since we no longer have to rely from other countries. GloVax eyes to manufacture around 1.5 million doses of UCARVAX 19 in the country once it secures an emergency use authorization. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
Now, here are other stories we're keeping our eyes on. Malacanang is urging the public to remain alert and cooperate with authorities amid the threat of Typhoon Bising. Spokesperson Harry Roque notes that different government agencies are now preparing to give assistance to those who will be affected by the typhoon. Vice President Leni Robredo is hoping that more community pantries will surface to help hungry Filipinos during the COVID-19 pandemic. Lately, social media have been flooded with posts of community pantries where residents can donate basic goods for others. And Hidilyn Diaz is calling for support as she competes at the 2021 Asian Lifting Championship in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Diaz does not need to make a podium finish during this Asian Championships, as she only needs to show up to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. Catch the forum later here on One News at 9 p.m. You can post your question on our Facebook page. And for more updates, just visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. And catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.